The Blue Jays are coming off a season in which they slightly missed out on the playoffs. And a lot of people, including myself, were big believers in Toronto and thought if they did make the postseason, they were capable of making a deep run. Top to bottom, Toronto had one of the best rosters in all of baseball, and unfortunately, their slow start cost them a postseason berth. I believe last year if Toronto did make the playoffs, they would have been very dangerous, considering how good they were when they finished out the season. But looking forward to 2022, I believe Toronto could be an even bigger threat than they were in 2021. They made some big offseason acquisitions to improve on last year's roster. They signed Kevin Gausman from San Francisco, who pitched like a legitimate ace last year. They also signed Yusei Kikuchi from Seattle, who could be a very good back-end starter. And you can't forget about Matt Chapman, who Toronto recently acquired from Oakland, who, when healthy, is one of the better defensive third basemen in the game. So the very few holes that existed on this roster in 2021 were filled this offseason. Now looking at this roster as a whole, let's start with the offense. Top to bottom, you can argue that this is the best lineup in all of baseball. It is just stacked. First up, they have Vladimir Guerrero, who last year hit .311 with 48 home runs and 111 RBIs, nearly winning a Triple Crown award. Vlad is heading into his age 23 season this year, and he looks very good in spring, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him put up similar numbers to last year. They have Bo Bichette over at shortstop, who was a dark horse MVP candidate last year and could really improve on last year's numbers. He's heading into his age 24 season, and last year he hit above .300 with 30 home runs, 100 RBIs, and 25 stolen bases. Bo Bichette is still very young, but it is clear he is one of the best shortstops in the game today. They also have George Springer, who was injured last year, but this year he looks to be fully healthy, and when healthy, this guy has 40 home run potential while providing Gold Glove defense in center field. They have Teoscar Hernandez, who put up a career year last year in which he hit .296 with 32 home runs and 116 RBIs. Teoscar is most likely going to hit in the middle of this stacked lineup, so I could see him putting up similar numbers to last year. They have Yuli Gurriel as well, who is one of the worst hitters on this roster, but on many other teams he would be one of the best. This guy has 30 home run potential and can potentially drive in close to 100 runs. And of course, as I mentioned before, they have Matt Chapman manning the hot corner. He's going to provide Gold Glove defense, and he has 40 home run potential. He's not going to hit for the highest average in the world, but he does just about everything else very well. Randal Grichuk will also be in that outfield. Last year he had 25 home runs and close to 80 RBIs. So hitting towards the bottom of this lineup, Grichuk is going to be a very vital piece to Toronto's offense. They also have Kevin Biggio, who is coming off an awful season in 2021, but just a couple years ago he showed what he's fully capable of. This guy is still relatively young. He's not getting up there in age, so he has a lot of potential to have a bounce back year, especially hitting in this lineup. And finally, for the catcher position, it looks like they're going to have a platoon between Alejandro Kirk and Danny Jansen, who both are pretty decent catchers. They're not great, but they're also not too bad. So that is their 1 through 9 offensively. Like I said before, this is one of the most lethal offenses in baseball. If they're clicking on all cylinders, it is going to be very hard to get any of these guys out on a consistent basis. Now moving over to their starting rotation, they have made some big improvements off of last year. As I mentioned before, they acquired Kevin Gausman, who last year with San Francisco had a career year in which he pitched to a 2.81 ERA and punched out 227 batters. They acquired Jose Barrios at the deadline last year, and Barrios is a pretty solid pitcher. He's not going to put up Cy Young caliber numbers, I don't think, but I think he could put up a 3.5 ERA and punch out 200 batters pretty easily. They also have a budding star in Alex Manoah, who last year pitched to a 3.22 ERA and punched out 127 batters. And looking towards the back end of Toronto's rotation, they have Hyun-Jin Ryu, who just a couple years back was one of the better pitchers in the American League. Now, I don't think he's going to revert back to his old form, but I could see him having a bounce-back campaign in 2022. I could see him having an ERA sub 4. Now, for the 5th spot in Toronto's rotation, they have a couple different options. I believe they will go with Yusei Kikuchi, who they just acquired from the Seattle Mariners. He is a pretty talented pitcher who is not a bad 5 pitcher at all. But they also do have Nate Pearson, who was a former top prospect, and also Ross Stripling, who can eat up some innings as well. But like I said before, I do think they're going to end up going with Kikuchi. And looking at their bullpen, they have one of the best closers in the game in Jordan Romano. Last year, Romano locked down 23 saves where he had a 2.14 ERA. And outside of Romano, they have Ross Stripling, who I just mentioned. I think Stripling is going to start out the year in the bullpen in that long relief role, but but I think he is a very good long relief guy who could eat up some innings. Outside of them two, they also have Tim Maiza, Yimi Garcia, Roansy Contreras, and Adam Simber. So their bullpen is not the best in baseball, but I do think it is top 10. I think they have a very good bullpen to go along with a very good starting rotation and an elite offense. So all around, Toronto is very good. You could say their weak point is their bullpen, but in reality, they really don't have that bad of a bullpen. That just goes to show how good the rest of this team is. So for Toronto, I do think they are going to improve off of their 91-win season last year. Now, I don't think they're going to be very much better than last year just because the American League East is arguably the best division in all of baseball. The Yankees are still going to be very good. The Red Sox just picked up Trevor Story, so they are still going to be around. The Tampa Bay Rays are the Tampa Bay Rays. They're going to be towards the top, and the Baltimore Orioles, I think, are going to be improved off of last year. But I think it's fair to say that Toronto deserves to be favored in the American League East to start the season. On paper, this team is really good. So I think Toronto is going to be a lot of fun to watch this year. That offense is going to be something special. They have two legitimate MVP candidates, in my opinion, in Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette. And you could make a case that this team outside of Guerrero and Bichette has 3 or 4 other all-star caliber players on offense. I'm just really excited to watch Toronto this year. They're going to be a lot of fun to watch, and I think they should be favored in the American League East, as I mentioned before, because just how good they were last year and the improvements they made this offseason. But anyways, that's going to wrap today's video up. I wanted to give some thoughts here on Toronto because I think they are a very good team this year, and I think they could make a deep run into the postseason. And as always, if you guys do enjoy the content, feel free to subscribe. I'm going to be coming out with some preseason predictions, power rankings, all that good stuff. So if you're a big baseball fan, hit that subscribe button. And as always, I want to thank you guys again so much for watching and continuing to support, and I'll see you next time.